Welcome to episode 44 of the Sports Geek podcast. And this week we're talking baseball as we caught up with Josh Tucker from the LA Dodgers while his team was out here to play the Diamondbacks at the SCG. And I catch up with AJ from Navigate Research and talk a little bit about the social media scoreboard.
Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who once took 4 out of 15 bowling leg breaks as a teenager, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and thank you again for listening to Sports Geek Podcast, whether it be on the website, sportsgeekhq.com, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, or any other good podcatcher, even the bad ones, we should be there. Thanks again, DJ Joel. Slight correction on my bowling figures. 4 wickets, 415, not 4 out of 15, as there are 20 wickets, but I would take a whole podcast to explain cricket to Americans in the same way that a lot of Australians were learning a lot about baseball when the Dodgers and Diamondbacks came to the SCG to open the MLB season. I was lucky enough to be there helping out the SCG with all things social media and was lucky enough to catch up with Josh Tucker, who runs social for the Dodgers. So we had a little bit of chat with Josh on today's show. And then later on, I talked to AJ Maestas from Navigate Research on a study project that he has done on sports, fans and social media and the way that they engage with teams and the way that sponsors can engage with fans on social media and what kind of results sponsors and teams can get with social media. So it's an interesting discussion. And then I just want to have a quick shout out and a big thank you to everyone who attended the Sports Geek One Day Educational, or the Sports Geek ODE, if you are following along on Twitter. Big thanks to Steve Vallis from the Honey Bar for hosting us, and also Steve Sammartino and Josh Rowe for attending and providing a bit of light, colour and humour with a few conversations to break up the day. But for all those attended, thank you very much. You've really inspired me to do more of them. So I look to do some later in the year in Melbourne and potentially in other parts of Australia. But first, here's my chat with Josh Tucker from the LA Dodgers. So here we are at the SCG in the new press box in the Noble stand, ready for the second game. I'm here with Josh Tucker from the Dodgers. Welcome to Sydney.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's all right. And how have you found the trip so far?
I want to, without sounding too cliche, I want to say it's a trip of a lifetime. I studied abroad here in 2009.
So where did you study?
New South Wales.
Yep.
And I lived in Bondi. It was less studying, more working on my tan.
I went for a swim this morning, in Bondi. So while you're up here, you may as well.
Yeah, but the way that we've been treated here, from the stewardesses on the plane to the arrival committee, everything has been beyond belief and top notch. It's really been a truly remarkable experience.
And so you want to tell everybody who's listening, what's your role at the Dodgers and what it entails?
Yeah, so I handle social media, and we have a digital department, so I fall under that, and I produce most of the majority of the content from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Vine, and Google+. And so it's strategy to play-by-play on Twitter, and really just trying to provide valuable content for our fans.
So, I've spoken to some of the guys in MLB land before, and, you get a lot of support from BAM, and they produce a lot of content. So really, social is a spot where you get to have a little bit of creativity in what you can do, because BAM produce so much of the standard content, the web recaps and video replays and stuff like that. So what do you look to do from a creative point of view?
The one way that we can differentiate ourselves is through access, and I think we really try and be leaders in that space and give our fans not only unprecedented access, but try and tell the story of our players. And I think we are a baseball team, but really the chemistry in the clubhouse is what I try and portray as much as possible. Our guys, I think a good example is Juan Uribe, who speaks barely any English, and some of the guys would probably question some of his Spanish. And Hyunjin Ryu, who speaks Korean exclusively, and their friendship. And we've really been able to give our fans just kind of a glimpse of that relationship and the inner workings of the clubhouse, which to me, as a fan of sports, that's what I want to see. Of course, it's the on-field play, but it's that daily interactions that we try and give our fans.
So from a clubhouse point of view, because we've worked with clubs before, and different managers or different coaches have a different take on the inner sanctum of the locker room or the clubhouses in Major League Baseball. I was with the Cowboys, and they've got a new coach, and he sort of put it to his players when we were doing a training session. He goes, "You guys have earned the right to be in this locker room. That's our inner sanctum. We don't want that shared. Everything else we can share." Do you have that? Do you have that kind of restriction, or how much, how far, as far as getting into the clubhouse and showing that inner sanctum?
I think there's been a real buy-in from the top, and that's been really important. The new ownership came in and said social media is a priority, and that it extends all the way down. So I think, number one, we have to be mindful of that sanctity, and we don't want guys to feel like that wherever.
You're not stalking them. You're not taking photos while they're in a quiet moment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I really want to be a fly on the wall as much as possible, and I think the more that the players see that we are respecting them, the more they'll give us, and it's that there's a fine line between trying to be there and give our fans content and getting in the player's face.
Let's want to talk a bit about the platforms. You do a lot of vines. I really like you're doing the super slow mo vines, and I saw the Kershaw one that I'll put in the show notes. It's a bit like a lava lamp. You could just keep watching that over and over and over. So from which of these, from a Vine point of view, is it just a matter of just getting out that more content to the fans and that short snippet stuff?
Every piece of content that we post to any platform needs to provide some kind of value to our fans. And Clayton Kershaw is the most exciting player in Major League Baseball, so it's trying to give a different perspective into how he gets his preparation. So trying to get him walking out onto the field and him warming up, but not in the typical angles that you're used to seeing. So you typically have a camera on the front of the player as they're walking onto the field. So I tried to get behind. Or the team photo last week. All the photographers are in front.
Yep.
So I try and get
that 45-degree angle and get the stadium in the background.
That exactly. Kind of stuff. Because there's going to be 15 AP, Getty, and even our team photographer there. So it's really trying to find that different angle and different glimpse into the personalities, characters, and just imagery.
And so from a Vine, we're working with teams, and they're really pretty much just using it as Twitter video. And are you seeing any engagement on Vine itself, or is it just pretty much a way to do video and then seeing it to Twitter, and that's where it's getting its traction?
I think, and this is just based off an eyeball test, Vine, and this isn't necessarily for the Dodgers, but Vine is an incredible social network. And you'll see some of these American Viners, and there a lot of them are kids.
Yep.
And they're getting like 2 million revines on a post, which is absolutely insane. So I think people are consuming Vines on their own. It really is an incredible tool for Twitter. In that it's playing natively on the timeline, and a lot of times, and we see a higher interaction rate with photos than we do with Vines. But it really, Clayton Kershaw could be throwing a bullpen, use that example. And do you want to see a photo of that, or do you want to see a video? And
so then how do you handle the mix between, because we know that Instagram and Twitter, they just don't get along. You set out a link and it's that they don't play up. So do you just sort of keep them now separate? You put something up on the Dodgers Instagram and it's sort of just in the Instagram space and it has its own life there?
So we see very low engagement rate on Instagram videos. And I say that we don't know what the actual engagement is with a video because you don't know how many plays. And so that is an engagement. So I think people are watching the videos. It's sometimes a bit tricky depending on your Wi-Fi situation or data situation.
Or you're on the bus and it's not the best time to be looking at silly videos and those kind of things.
But I think that the strength in Instagram is it's a photo sharing network, and we get so much content that I think there's sometimes when video is appropriate, but really I view Instagram as a photo sharing platform.
Yeah, and just the Major League Baseball games in Sydney. I've been keeping a track of MLB in Oz, and yesterday the first game just blew up. Like as soon as the tarp came off the diamond, everyone's pulled out their phone and gone click, 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 click.
It's amazing.
And it's great from a stadium point of view because you get to tell the story of, this is a great game, and it's very hard to be negative on Instagram. You might get someone complaining or something, but really most of it, the content coming out of there is positive, and this is an awesome experience.
I wish there were filters on Instagram comments, and we have a couple hundred words that are automatically filtered out on Facebook. So I wish Instagram had similar filters because there is sometimes unfortunate language used there, but.
So do you want to take me through? We had a quick chat yesterday.
Yeah.
You want to take me through some of the tools that you use, sort of day to day when you're out in the field, and then when you get back to your Mac. So you're a Mac guy.
I'm a Mac guy. The rest of the organization, they're PC people, I guess.
Yeah.
And
you have to be in the digital space. You've been a bit creative, and you want to be able to plug in your. So what phone have you got?
I have an iPhone 5S.
Yep.
And that's how I get the slow-mo video. Alana Rizzo, our Twitter extraordinaire and broadcaster, is laughing at me down there.
Yeah.
What? Oh.
And now you're part of the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah. Alana Rizzo, everybody.
Yeah.
So I use TweetDeck is my number one tool.
Yeah.
And I have about 50 columns, varying from Dodger to @Dodgers to Dodgers, verified users, non-verified users, our players, our broadcasters.
And so from a Twitter point of view, from a strategy point of view, are you trying to, if you see a celebrity tweet, are you trying to amplify that and then make sure they're feeling part of Dodger Nation, or, what's sort of your strategy around engaging fans? Because, over 1 million followers, it's very hard to be saying thank you to everybody every time there's a tweet.
Yeah, I think that the most underutilized tool on Twitter from a brand perspective is the favorite.
Yeah.
Because it means that not only do we see it, but we recognize it. And I think that people get a lot of praise or often for engagement with a reply, but the power of a favorite is
the fact
enormous.
that now the Twitter app highlights it. 9 months ago you didn't know that someone favorited your tweet. You had to be techie and check someone. But now it comes up and says, the Dodgers favorited your tweet, and you're like, have a little, get a bit of step, pep in your step. So
absolutely. So that's something that I try and read every tweet that comes through and mentions @Dodgers and even the word Dodgers. So we are watching, we're listening.
So in that, one thing I did want to ask you about is, you've got the hashtag Dodgers and your handle is Dodgers. Mm-hmm. Why the same thing? Why haven't you got like a Dodger Nation as your hashtag? Why isn't
so our hashtag that we use most is It's Time for Dodger Baseball, ITFDB, and that's something that is born from the broadcast with Vin Scully and we brought to social. And so last night actually at game time in the States, Vin Scully, hashtag It's Time for Dodgers, or ITFDB, Dodgers, Australia, and Kershaw were trending in the U.S., which is pretty remarkable. And then ITFDB was trending worldwide, which is also pretty cool that you have
and it's effectively like it's an inside joke with Dodger fans. Like most people see it and go, are the new kids on the block reforming? What's a go? It's all these characters together. Yeah.
So it's that inside. You have to be a Dodger fan to really know that, and I think it's now becoming a little bigger than that. But it's amazing that a baseball team from America could be playing in Sydney, and our hashtag is trending worldwide at 1 a.m. in the morning local time. Or Pacific time.
So the thing is, when it's nighttime in Australia, everyone else is asleep.
Right, I know.
So
it cheapens
that
all
doesn't
of
cheapen it, but it has happened before where we'll have a big TV show on in Australia, and there's a show called Hey Hey It's Saturday. It was a variety show, so Hey Hey was trending because we were watching this show that we'd watched 20 years ago. Then the US wakes up and they start going, hey, hey, and just start riffing off that hashtag, not knowing that we're talking about a TV show 20 years ago.
There's on Reddit and Imgur, there's always the late night posts and America's sleeping, so like let's Australia and the UK, let's get after this. And so you wake up and it's the same.
So what are some of your goals from a social point of view for this season?
From a social standpoint, it's all about engagement for us, and because of our relationship with BAM, there is a sponsorship and ticketing component, but for me and in my role, it's always been about providing content.
So that's you using Adobe Social. Is that sort of how you're measuring engagement and tracking traffic and things like that?
Yeah. So Major League Baseball, they came up with this metric called engagement per fan. And so we led Major League Baseball across all platforms in 2013 in engagement per fan. I think that's a goal that we'd like to meet again. But so engagement is our number one KPI. And that's really, it's providing great content for our fans and then winning on the field, really.
Exactly, it's always a great marketing strategy. You're winning on the field. Kershaw is throwing Ks all day, and you'll be like, this is easy job. I think Brian Sraven at the Giants, after the Giants won, he goes, winning a championship, that's the best marketing strategy you can have.
There's not a better one.
But you've still got to make sure that you can have the strategy in place to take advantage when those big things happen. When it's a no-hitter or when something amazing happens. If your fans aren't trained to use the hashtag and amplify it, you won't do it. Now, I'm taping on my new Zoom recorder. I hope this is recorded. Because it would be very disappointing that if we've had this discussion and it hasn't recorded, but I'm hoping it. So thank you very much. Good luck for the second game.
Thank you.
And next time in LA, I'll drop by.
That would be fantastic. Everybody follow Alana Rizzo on Twitter at Alana Rizzo.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign-up-now.
Thanks again to Josh from the Dodgers for joining me in the new SCG Media Centre. Really nice setup in the new stand there. I was lucky enough to see how it operated from the pink test point of view, but the SCG absolutely transformed. The pictures that were shared on social media did not do it justice. There was a lot of chatter from what I was following along from the SCG account. Both the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks and the MLB did a terrific job bringing the game out. And all the fans absolutely loved the experience. And yes, the 24-inch hot dogs were ridiculously oversized, but exceptionally popular. And I was also very lucky, absolutely honoured, not normally gobsmacked or overawed when meeting sports stars and celebrities, but I was very lucky to meet a guy, Vin Scully, an absolute legend of the game. He's this is his 65th season with the Dodgers. So you can completely understand why Josh has driven the hashtag for Dodgers off Vin Scully's catchphrase. So absolutely humbled to meet a legend of broadcasting in Vin Scully. So next, I was lucky enough to catch up with AJ Maestas from Navigate Research recently to talk about a social media sports study that he did recently with Wasserman, which you can check out at the socialmediascoreboard.com. And we just talk a little bit about understanding the value of fan engagement in sports and digital, but primarily around social media and what it means for fans using social media, and then also what it means for the sports teams and their sponsors. Here's my chat with AJ Maestas. Very happy to welcome onto the Sports Geek podcast AJ Maestas, if I've got that correct, from Navigate Research. Welcome to the podcast, AJ.
Thank you, Sean. Happy to be here, and you got the name correct. Thank you for that.
Okay, well, extra points for me. I just wanted to, we met when you were last in Melbourne, and you were just saying before we started recording you've been backwards and forwards in Australia doing some work, but I wanted to get you on the on the call to talk about the socialmediascoreboard.com, a research project that you did analysing and talking to fans and how they use, sports fans in particular, on how they use social media. You want to tell us a little bit about and a bit of background around the social media scoreboard?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Well, we think we've essentially created the Bible here for how fans, what, who, where, when, and why around all forms of social media. Now, of course, leave it to an American to call it the Bible. That's probably biblical is a bit of a stretch, but there wasn't existing research out there in the marketplace that comprehensively looked at the many different ways that fans interact with social media, what the marketplace is paying for it, and where the opportunities were to be better or amplify the positive impact of how you use social, digital, and mobile media. So we teamed up with Wasserman Media Group, one of the strategic thought leaders here in North America, and they're rapidly growing globally, so you'll see them soon beyond just their athlete representation business in Australia. But as it is now, they're our partner in this study, and they helped us combine and bring in some of the more practical attributes of what is a normal market research study. But that's the gist of it, answering those questions that many people have on what is it worth and how does it impact fans and their behavior.
Yeah, it is a question that I get a lot. I was actually on radio just last week, people saying, why do teams bother with social media? Does it actually return? Is it worth the investment? That kind of things. But you've been able to come back with some numbers, things like that social media has driven 42% of fans to watch a game on TV, or 29% of fans followed a play team or a league. So it start giving some of the numbers, and especially around driving business for sports teams and how social has helped sports teams and leagues do that. Do you want to give us a bit of insight on what, some of those kind of business drivers that you found out of the research?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. The quick answer is yes, there is ROI, and I agree. Many people are asking that question. That's why we launched this study and have made it available for resale. We feel like there's a great number of people that need to make this business case. Just as you would in any business case you're making, it usually starts with ROI, and most people have been falling back on basic metrics like total impressions. But I can tell you with strong confidence that there is return on investment when you look at measures like how influential or impactful social media is. As a matter of fact, it ranks number 1 or 2 in just about every slice or category that you can imagine, driving people to become a fan, follow a team, watch on television, attend in person, connect with a corporate sponsor and feel positively about that corporate partner, or even buy their products or services. It's just off the charts. And just about any metric you can think that you'd be commercially motivated to drive out of fans, and yet it comes at an incredibly low cost. Internal programs can cost next to nothing, just time and effort. And even in the marketplace, it's being sold for far too little. We found that the average CPM for across all social media mediums averages about $7 a CPM. And if I were to tell you that I have found a medium that is among the most 2 impactful ways to do just about anything in sports, certainly you wouldn't think it sold at such a low price. So yes, there's ROI on social media, and the crux of this study is to highlight exactly what is most effective and efficient to do with social media.
That's really important, because a lot of digital departments and then the sales departments that are trying to sell these properties are trying to re-educate sponsors out of that social media is free. Like the fact that, yes, we can set up a Facebook page and we can post and it doesn't cost them anything, but it's really, one of the things that the teams and the leagues, and to a lesser extent athletes, have to realise is to put some value on what those posts are, and it's more of it's a valuation of what it's worth, not that it doesn't take much to send out a tweet. It's what the value is to the brands. And we've got these brands that are clamouring to try to reach these fans. Initially, they've been drawn in by the big numbers, the big like numbers and follow numbers of teams. But it's now, realising that if a post is done correctly and the right offer is presented to fans, that they do get really good returns from activating via sports teams and leagues and athletes.
That is exactly correct, and there's no question about it. It's most difficult for media entities. I know what we're experiencing here in the United States is a lot of the media, the major media networks, all of which are clients of ours, have a hard time getting a la carte value, and instead they're often treating it as a value add. It's a throw-in along with a large media pie.
Yeah, the steak knives of a deal, so to speak.
That's exactly right, and I can tell you that speaking purely for their domestic business here in the United States, ESPN appears to be further ahead than the other folks in this space, where they've been selling their deals on a cross-platform basis for over 10 years now. They don't do deals that don't integrate across second and third devices, that don't utilize social, digital, and mobile aspects within their network, assets that they have under their control. And it's to the benefit of their sponsors. We do a great deal of research on understanding the impact of sponsorship and advertisement deals through sports with ESPN and, again, Fox and NBC and TNT and the alternatives. And there's a very clear and measurable positive impact when advertiser integrates through social, digital, and mobile, as well as the more traditional assets and elements, 30-second television spots, signage that's on television, etc. So the truth is that not only is it a shame to give away something so valuable for free, but you're actually doing a favor to an advertiser or sponsor if you can get them to buy an integrated package.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. If you're presenting your proposals as all of these line items that the sponsor can pick and choose which items they take in or take out, it's not very effective. Whereas if you say, no, digital and social is just part of this whole solution, it's not something they can pick apart and try to get the value proposition that they want, because really, for it to work, it has to be across all your platforms.
That's exactly right. And we've made this mistake before as an industry. When websites were relatively new, they were an extra throw-in, right? And how silly would that concept be today? If you look at global trends, and I won't bore you with statistics and quote them, but you look at the rate of movement towards mobile on a global basis, and there's no question where the future's first screen is going to be, that first point of contact with consumers, and it's going to be smartphones, and going further into the future of television and the ways that people actually interact day to day with content. And to think that you might be a late adopter or even just the middle of the pack with things like social, digital, and mobile, it would be a pretty tragic mistake, in my opinion. You need to be involved and seriously committed to an investment in the space just to be, just to be in the middle of the pack at this stage right now.
So the other side of it, so looking at that's the commercial side and how to effectively monetize, which is, one of the key phrases everyone's trying to say, how do we monetize social? And it is a broader approach. It isn't about selling a tweet or a post. It is that broader approach. And that's what you can do with your sponsors and help leverage them into that market. But the other side of social that it really provides, and sort of one of the reasons a lot of teams got on board first was the fan development side of this. And one of the parts of the study came back and sort of showed how fans are feeling more connected to their sport via social media. So you've got the Major League Soccer, the MLS, 32% of fans said that they felt more connected to their sport due to social media, and it's MLS and NHL were the top two there. Do you think because they were sort of outside the big four that they've put more effort into social and really driven that fan engagement and fan development, like attracting new fans via social?
It's actually a combination of both. As you know, Navigate Research, my firm, does a lot of work with all those different sports and what have you in the United States, and so I'm able to speak a little bit to their fan base being different. So NHL, that's ice hockey, fans are naturally inclined to be early adopters of technology. They've always skewed or indexed relative to other sports and codes in the U.S. To be more likely to adopt these type of technologies. So a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. A little bit is true also with Major League Soccer, the premier soccer league in the United States, where their fan base skews younger and more Hispanic than other sports. which again, puts a little bias in there for social, digital, and mobile media. But we also found that those clubs were making a greater effort. They had almost double the number of tweets or social media posts for their fans. So it's difficult to perfectly isolate, the chicken or the egg there, but there's no question that we didn't find any abnormalities in why they were performing better based on who their fans were and what they wanted. The beauty of research and what we do every day at Navigate is to, investigate not what we think by gut feel, but what is factual out there. I can share an Australian-specific statistic that Australian consumers, even if a lot of the stadium are lagging behind in Wi-Fi and other technology. Now, I know some of your clients are on the front edge, by the way, Sean. I recognize the things that are going on at the SCG and Allianz and ANZ. But that's and it's coming on at a few other places, right? But
yep.
That's rare. In Australian consumers, despite not having that quality of bandwidth or connectivity in many of the stadia in the country, actually have a higher propensity to want to follow their team that way, and a higher likelihood to watch streaming via digital, et cetera, et cetera. So it bucks some conventional wisdom that would say that your fans would be a little less eager for some of these rights and benefits as they would in the U.S., where it's pretty commonplace to be able to have quality bandwidth at a stadium.
Yeah, it is something that is a problem that has been a worldwide problem, and it's slowly being solved by partners. And there are a few Cisco rollouts that are happening at the SCG and Allianz among the few, and we saw how much extra data that fans were sharing once that problem got solved. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, I guess, just having a look at the different platforms that fans are using. One of the stats there is you've sort of looked at where fans are getting their sports info, and it's sort of ranked Facebook at 36%, Twitter at 21%, Google Plus at 16%, and then Instagram at 7%. Is it pretty much that across the board? Like Google Plus, to a certain degree, for a lot of teams, that I speak to, they're sort of doing it because Google's a really big giant, but not really seeing the engagement. But is it still something that people are accessing, I guess, their news from? And is it something that could catch fire or become a viable, effectively third position or a third social media platform for teams?
That's hard to say at this early stage. It's more being treated like a passport on the internet for people who are users of Google platforms. But I would say that the dominant, the winner, it looks like there's already a winner in the mobile software game, and that is Google. So Droid has dominant global share and higher growth rates than iOS or Apple. So I wouldn't bet against Google, but clearly it's not the same kind of social media platform that a Facebook is, even if that may have been or have not been one of their original intentions. I'm glad you brought up Cisco, actually. We're a really big fan of the work that Cisco does, because that's an example of the flexibility that you need inside a stadium to anticipate future needs. There's things that we don't know of today that you're going to want to do and be flexible enough to handle to satisfy your fans' wants and needs. Twitter is, how many people were on Twitter 5 years ago, and how many people are on Facebook 12 years ago? It's that quick, these two dominant players. So to give you a Facebook versus Twitter example, that's just a little PR highlight from our team, from the study, which is raw statistics. But as you dive deeper into that, and when we're delivering these results, we're working with the NRL on this. We're really proud to say the NRL is the first Australian client to purchase this study, which releases next week. And when you dig a little deeper, you'll see that if you look at just the basic user base of Facebook and Twitter, you'd say, well, those are large. But if you look on a proportionate basis, people disproportionately prefer to receive their news through Twitter, which makes sense, of course, intuitively. But if you just blindly set up your social media platforms based on how large is the user base, those are the ones we're supposed to be involved in, you might misuse them. And there's very little actual purchases that take place on a Facebook, but there's a lot of influence and coordination of groups for social events. Twitter is disproportionately the favored way for sports fans to receive their news and updates. It is just behind Facebook and how I want to follow my team, but when you look at the size of the user base, again, it's the way that your fans would like to get the inside scoop, updates, etc.
Yeah, I mean that's what we just recently just looked at all the teams, and the only thing with Twitter, and it is, it's sort of with Twitter, it's once you're in, you understand it and you are getting the info. At the moment, it's just from an Australian point of view and lesser extent around the world, is that Twitter is still having that growth issue of not having as many fans on to be able to get that data. Like what from the studies and the looking at our clients' traffic drivers, Facebook is still far and above the big driver from a traffic point of view for fans, and that's partly because of the user base that they have and the amount of fans that they reach.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the keys to doing the kind of research that are in this study are to understand what tool is appropriate at what time. There's no question that a sledgehammer can drive a nail, into a piece of wood, but is that the most efficient tool to use, and is that the way your customers want to receive that information? Really intelligent practitioners of CRM or customer relationship management practices know exactly what part of their database to hit with what kind of message at what time, so as to keep them connected, to not cause attrition in that database and relationship, but to still maximize ultimately, revenue and fandom and connectivity to that customer base. There's a little bit of an art and there's a little bit of a science to that.
So what are the next things that you're looking at post the social media scoreboard, as far as getting a bit more analysis of what sports fans are doing?
Well, it's a study we intend to continue into the future, and that data becomes powerful over time, that being able to look at change over time. So certainly it is on our long-term radar, and at the rate of change in this space, it should be on anybody's. It's not a short-term thing, it's going away. One interesting thing that we have a lot of interest in the Australian-specific market with is a fan experience research study we're coming out with later this year. Will address what are the drivers for someone attending sporting events in person versus watching at home. And inside of that on-fan experience, what is it that they want out of the technology of the stadium, using the Cisco example, or out of the actual facilities they're visiting? Certainly it's something we expect to be used by commercial partners and agencies to understand how to best interact with fans and make a connection with fans for those commercial partners, as well as those that own and operate facilities, that are looking to draw revenue out of attendees, whether it be food service or what have you. We think it's a question that there doesn't appear to be a really strong and consistent answer in the industry for, which is what makes these people come and how do I get them to come back versus all their alternatives in the sports and entertainment world, including sitting at home and watching that same club play on television.
So looking at solving that problem of it's easier for me to stay at home and watch it on my high definition screen than sit in the rain or travel via public transport. So trying to find some of those answers in that space, and whether things around technology improvements and mobile app support and having greater connectivity, whether these are some of the tipping points that stadiums or teams can invest in to drive more people to the games. That's sort of the things you're looking for.
No question, you nailed it. Great marketers take risks, and because marketing is often a combination of the science and the things we do to navigate research, and the art and that intuition and the things that great marketers are willing to do and take risks on. It means that only those that are really on the cutting edge are there right now. And you named a few of them with ANZ and SCG and Allianz. We think there's an incredible amount of room for improvement. And it's it's one of those things where early adopters gain sometimes immeasurable leads because it takes time. There's a serious investment in people, resources, talent, intellectual property, physical actual assets, and technology and implementation. So there's a lot of money behind this stuff. We work with Populous on a global basis. They're the global leader in architecture around stadium design. They're certainly one of the people we're having in-depth conversations with this study about, to understand what fans want when they come on site. And we're working with a number of clubs in the United States here to help bridge that gap, to make the immeasurable, the unique things about attending in person that we all know make us attend in person, to protect those, while at the same time bridging the gap between some of the conveniences you have at home that are missing from many of the stadia in Australia, as an example.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast, AJ. I will have a link to the socialmediascoreboard.com in the show notes, as well as some of the stats from the study. I'll also link to you on LinkedIn. So if people want the study, they can simply just go to the site and enter their details, and you will follow up with them?
Yeah, no question. I'm always looking for excuses to talk to folks in Australia. Love the people, love the country, and I'll even be there next week at a couple conferences. So hopefully I'll see you all in person for those that get a chance to listen to the podcast. Okay. Thanks a lot, AJ. Thank you, Sean. Bye-bye.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes.
Thanks again to AJ for joining me on the podcast, and if you're lucky enough to catch up with him on his many visits to Australia, say hi from me and get him to buy your beer. He's a really good bloke. That wraps up this show. As I said, it's been a really busy week working both with the SCG around the Major League Baseball, over in Perth with what the West Coast Eagles are doing, kicking off the season. Getting 2 wins to kick off the season always helps. And working with the guys and girls, the Hockeyroos and the Kookaburras, in teaching them a little bit about social media and how they can use it and also manage it as an athlete. This week's Sounds of the Game, as you would expect, I've gone for some of the sounds of the game at the SCG, Major League Baseball. As I said earlier, everybody who attended the game had an absolute ball. And again, from a podcast point of view, it's very hard for me to paint the picture that was the SCG. All I can tell you is go to Instagram, check out MLB in Oz, 3,800 Instagram photos were shared over the 2 days with shots of extra long hot dogs, terrific looking ballpark. So yeah, check them out. Some tremendous work, which leads me into my social media post of the week, and I'm going to give it to our guest, Josh Tucker. And one of the posts we actually talked about in the interview, a slow-mo vine of Clayton Kershaw in the bullpen. So check that out. That is in the show notes. The show notes can be found, as always, using the number. This is episode 44. And so that clock tells me it is time to wind up the show and dedicate this show. You can get the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/44. And I'm going to dedicate this episode to the man himself, the Logo. The man is known as the Logo, Jerry West, Laker legend. I'll actually link to a video I saw recently of Jerry West teaching young kids how to shoot a basketball. And even though he is on in years, Jerry West can still shoot a basketball. Doesn't miss one shot in the whole demonstration. So again, a couple of LA legends featuring in this podcast with Jerry West and Vin Scully. That's it for this week. Like I said, apologies for this one being a little bit late, but it has been a busy week, especially with the one-day educational yesterday at the Honey Bar. So, time for the closing 2 cents. I'm sure you saw this on the Sports Geek Facebook page, but Marsha, always know who you're tweeting about.
Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Listen to Beers, Blokes, and Business at beersblokesbusiness.com. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.